Drop it. Yeah.
Alright, what is going on everybody? My name is Flexy and today I've got another video for you. So today I'm going to give you my take on the Supreme King deck, which really only became a deck in my opinion after Age of Overload. Before that it was just random pendulum decks trying to summon out Zark, if anything. And to be honest, at first I wasn't exactly convinced of the deck. Like I knew that it was powerful, I saw the replays and stuff like that, but I didn't think I was actually gonna play around with it. But then a friend of mine got interested in it. I helped him, like we labbed it together, we tested it together and stuff like that, right? We built a deck, and then I kind of got interested in it actually, and it's more fun. I have to admit, it's more fun than I initially thought. So today I'm going to give you my thoughts on it, and just to quickly give you a rundown of the list, it's rather simple actually, because the Dark Worm and Gate Magician are the absolute key cards of the deck. You're always gonna have to play 3 of those. Dark Worm, of course, being a good normal summon or even an extender if sent to the graveyard. And Gate Magician being basically Wisdom Eye Magician, replacing himself with one of the gates. And Gate 0 definitely being the better choice here. I'm going to get into the cards in the side deck here, or why I'm not playing them right now in later in the video. But for now it's Gate 0, and then Light Worm is the best high scale of the deck has, because it also enables plays on your opponent's turn if it is in the scale. And I have to say right here that those two are 1-offs currently, but personally I would actually choose to play them as 2-offs. Because Gate Magician requires them to be like him to be in the deck, and if you open this one, then Gate Magician is kinda dead if you open him as well. Or like, not even if you open, but you want to gain access to Gate Magician at all times basically. So let's say you send Darkworm off of Dragon Shrine, search Magician, and then you open 0 as well, it's kinda dead right now. Or rather it's an extender, but it's not like in your extract and stuff like that. So personally I would choose to play 2. Same with Lightworm, you get rid of him from your field into the extra deck during your opponent's turn after your turn 1 combo. So I personally prefer to have at least 1 extra copy in the deck. It isn't necessary 3, because it doesn't exactly like advance your game state. But 2 copies should be fine. I just took out as much as possible to cram in as much non-engine as possible. But you can also choose to go with 12, which should be plenty, right? And then just put in 2 extra copies. You can also play extra copies of Pendulum Evolution. I don't think it's necessary though. Pendulum Evolution gives you an extra Pendulum summon sometimes, which doesn't even come up for me like too much. So this is just at 1 because I like playing it. And then 1 copy of the Trap as well. You could also, I guess, play more than 1 copy if you want to hard draw it and like search something else with Gate Magician, but usually you can just gain access to it via him, so it's not too bad. And then 3 of the Search as well. This searches Darkworm or the Magician or whatever, it's pretty cool. Dragon Shrine foolish, just because I mean the deck doesn't rely on having an extender and a normal summon like older school-ish pendulum decks would, but still having access to Darkworm and a normal summon is very good. So I'm playing the max copies. Joker is just a normal summon that pluses as well, harmonizing being the main target here. Yeah, you could also play more Magicians if you wanted to. You could also play the Revolution Dragon, but I'll get into why I'm not playing him right now in a little bit. So definitely Joker for now, just a harmonizing searcher and a +1 normal summon. Astrograph, also being a good extender and a +1, but he doesn't come up too often, so he's not exactly mandatory, because the only card that can consistently trigger him is Gate Magician, and I mean, I don't know, it's like a little underwhelming as like compared to other Magician decks, but still a good inclusion in here. It's also a Zark card kinda, so you have to go with it. And then the 1 copy of Pendulum Dragon to banish off of the Trap, and the rest is non-engine. I have to say right now that the 15 non-engine cards that you can see here are just included randomly. I don't really know what's good in the format right now because I stopped playing competitively. I think I've mentioned that in another video. But yeah, for like these 15 cards right here, you can just treat them as empty slots that you can put in whatever. I just put in the first 5 non-engine cards I could think of. And now onto the extra deck. Those 3 are just banished targets for the Trap. They don't serve any other purpose. Zark's of course the boss monster of the deck, the main purpose of the deck. Arcray is only here because he's a Zark card basically, but I don't really see a point in actually making him. And maybe there's something I'm not seeing. Maybe there's like, I don't know, you're trying to get Zark into your extra deck so you can put him in your scale for the Floodgate effect or whatever. I don't really know. I just included him for the heck of it, but for now I don't see an actual point in ever making him. Clearing is a Raigekion Lex, which can also be summoned during your opponent's turn, so that's crazy. But also going second, of course, or like turn 4 or turn 3 or whatever, it's insane. And then Rebellion Xyz Dragon, you can notice I'm playing a second copy of him. This is for banishing him, like this could be any Xyz Dragon monster. This one is to summon him out to slap Overload on top, because turn 3, let's say both of your opponents, both you and your opponent's board are empty, and you have access to 2 level 7s, you can make Rebellion Xyz Dragon, slap Overload on top. He gains 2 additional attacks, which equals a total of 9,000 damage. This is really cool, a very cool in archetype way of OTKing. That's why I play these two. Definitely not mandatory or anything, especially like if your board doesn't get broken, then Zark and any 2 other monsters are probably enough to OTK. Vortex and Absolute just for an additional negate. Magician of Hope's only purpose is to trigger Pendulum Evolution to give you an extra Pendulum summon, because this requires you to summon a Pendulum monster from your face down extra deck. I mean, Rebellion Xyz Dragon could come up as well, but if you want to use him like for the OTK potentially, then wasting him on turn 1 to gain an extra Pendulum summon could be annoying. That's why I'm playing this one, which is also summonable by Magician, Harmonizing Magician and Purple Poison. Beyond the Pendulum, of course, important for basically every Pendulum deck, except in this case I choose to play 2 because it can help you play through hand traps, which I guess fits every Pendulum deck, but in this case I feel like it's a little easier to access this and then just keep playing. 1 Exceed the Pendulum, which works really well in this deck, and it also enables some of the combos. One of them is which I'm going to show you by the end of the video, as well as Appaloosa just being extra negates in case you end up having enough monsters to make her and then still have the materials on board for the Zark combo and stuff like that. And now onto the side deck. Gate Infinity. I don't like Gate Infinity because it says you cannot Pendulum Summon if you control a monster. That's pretty annoying. The only reason why I would ever choose to play it is because Gate 0 scale effect says that if you have Infinity in your other scale, you can destroy both cards and search any fusion or polymerization spell card. So you could search Instant Fusion, for example, to make Millennium Eyes to protect yourself from hand traps. You could make Fusion Destiny and slap a DP on top. You could search Super Poly and break your opponent's board. But I feel like neither of these are worth the effort right now, so playing Gate Infinity is really useless in my opinion. I just thought I'd include it and mention it here in case you're interested in that. Revolution Dragon searches a Dragon Pendulum monster from your deck level 8 or lower if you discard him, which I don't think makes any sense here. You could use him to revive stuff like, I don't know, clearing, for example. Like you summon him during opponent's turn, regeki him. If he clears it or if you link him away for something, and then you can use Revolution Dragon to reborn him. But I actually don't think that's like going to come up often enough to actually warrant playing him. You could play him though, and then he'd just be an alternate Joker target, for example. Or if you don't open Darkworm, Wings of Light, or Dragon Shrine Foolish, then you also have access to Darkworm with extra copies of Revolution Dragon. But I personally don't think it's necessary right now, so I just left him out. Rune Ice Pendulum Dragon is, first of all, he's a Pendulum Dragon in the extra deck, so you don't have to play any bricks like Odd Ice Pendulum Dragon, for example. But the other thing is, like, let's say you use the Gate Magician extender effect, for which you have to send 1 monster to the graveyard, like either Pendulum Dragon or Fusion Dragon or whatever, right? If you were to send a Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, for example, and your opponent DD Crows it, then you can't activate the trap anymore unless you have another Synchro Dragon anywhere that you can banish, right? That's why I thought of, you could, for example, you could send the Pendulum Dragon from, if you don't want to play extra, like more extra deck copies than necessary. You can send 1 Pendulum Dragon, and if your opponent happens to DD Crow or Bestial it, you still have the Pendulum Dragon in your deck, and that way you can kind of play around it in case your opponent thinks he cannot like stop your turn with that. And so this is kind of one thing I thought of, but this might not actually seem worth it. At that point, you can just play a second copy. Like, for example, you could banish your Rebellion Xyz Dragon if your opponent DD Crows or Bestials it, you still have the second copy, right? I just thought I'd point it out. And then Soul of the Supreme King is also a card that cheats out Zark, but it doesn't require any bricks, which is pretty cool. It only pays half your life points. The problem is it negates his effects, but you can circumvent that by summoning Kulia, or like ending your turn on Kulia, and then summoning Zark into his own Kulia points to, because Kulia says that monsters, Pendulum monsters this card points to, cannot have their activated effects negated, meaning that it kind of circumvents this Soul of the Supreme King restriction by not negating his on-summon trigger effect that nukes the opponent's board. Pretty interesting. Shout out to my boy Lux, by the way, who introduced me to this play. I don't think it's actually worth it. Like, I tested it a little bit and it was underwhelming. I definitely prefer the Supreme Celestial King, but it's just a play that I didn't want to keep from you guys. Then there's Clearwing Synchro Dragon, which first of all is a Synchro Dragon, so you can use him for the trap. But also, while this one is a very good card and a negate and stuff like that, you can't like summon him out properly with this deck as opposed to this one. So it's kind of a worse version of him. Though you have to play a level 3 non-tuner for Harmonizing Magician to use, probably. But still, he's a negate, he's a Synchro Dragon, it's good. Then there's Dark Rebellion Xyz Dragon, which also is an Xyz Dragon, so you can use him for the trap, but also he's kind of half a Borrelsword Dragon, so if there's any like big beatstick you can't get over for some reason, then he's kind of your man. In the same vein, or in a similar vein, Supreme King Dragon Dark Rebellion is also very cool, although he's not exactly mandatory, especially if you have access to the Overlord play. I just thought I'd mention this real quick because he's kind of part of the archetype, right? And then there's Savage and Baron just for extra omni negates. Savage is also very free with either the Lightworm and the Darkworm, or harmonizing and the monster it summons. Same as Baron, though you have to play an Oath Dragon Magician for the Baron. I don't think there are other ways to make him easily, like Baron the floor, but there may be. I may have overlooked a way, but definitely harmonizing into Oath Dragon is the easiest way to summon him out. And yeah, this is the entire list. It's pretty basic. You're playing basically every Supreme King card there is. A couple of Magicians to pad the deck out a little bit, and then cram in a bunch of non-engine. Extra deck's pretty straightforward as well. And now that I've told you about the alternatives from the side deck, I can show you my combo replay. So before I start this replay, I just want to mention real quick that this is not supposed to show, like, because as you can see here, my opponent has 3 hand traps, right? And I would definitely not be able to play through 3 hand traps, especially not with his hand. But this is just to show you a very basic, like, minimum combo that you can perform to end on a double nuke board wipe. And to start things off, you activate the Dragon Shrine, which gives you access to a Darkworm as an extender, so you don't have to normal summon it. It searches the Supreme King Gate Magician, which replaces himself with the Gate 0 to give you the low scale access, and then you just normal summon any Pendulum monster, which it doesn't, in this case it doesn't even have to be a Pendulum monster, like it could be a hand trap as well, since you already have the 2 monsters that you're going to Pendulum summon out in the extra deck besides Purple Poison. So it's basically just useless there, but Pendulum monsters are always good in the extra deck because you could just summon them out later. And now Beyond's going to search a high scale, which is Lightworm. Very important for the combo, by the way. It's the best high scale the deck has, period. Supreme King Gate Magician on summon searches you the trap. Then you link. This is also very important. This game state right here, you have to have Gate Magician on your field, or like a 2500 original attack spellcaster monster on your field to tribute for the trap. So Supreme King Gate Magician is kind of a given. And for this combo specifically, you also need to have Darkworm in your hand or in your graveyard. So Exceed the Pendulum on summon with her effect adds your Darkworm from the face-up extra deck to your hand. And then later on she's going to summon him out to trigger Lightworm into summoning himself out and quick synchroning, right? So this is the game state. Basically, like, let's say this wasn't an impermanence. You would have the trap set, you would end on Exceed the Pendulum and a Supreme King Gate Magician with a Darkworm in hand. And then I also kind of pretended to play out an opponent's turn, so he summons a monster out himself. You can imagine this to be like a Moye with a token, and then this was just for fun, you activate the trap, summon out Zark, nuke the entire board, and then if he manages to keep playing and summon another monster, for example, or 2 monsters or whatever, you activate Exceed the Pendulum, special summoning out this, triggering Lightworm into summoning himself out. And this is also, I want to mention, this is really important. At first, when I built this deck and like tried to come up with plays, I thought that Zark summon would trigger Lightworm summoning himself out, and then you could choose when to use his effect to quick synchro. But that's not actually the case, because once you summon him out, you have to trigger his effect in order to get the quick synchro, which happens on resolution of the same effect. So if you trigger Lightworm off of the summon of Zark, you're basically going to quick synchro into a Raigeki that can't activate his effect because your opponent doesn't control anything, because you already destroyed everything with Zark, right? That's why I chose to keep Exceed on the field and Darkworm in hand, to choose myself when I can summon out the monster that triggers Lightworm at the scale. So right now I summon him out, and this is also interesting because doing this specific play allows you to search with Darkworm again, which gives you even more follow-up for the turn 3 to OTK your opponent more successfully. And then you summon him out. He also on his own summon adds a Pendulum monster from your extra deck, like probably a specific one, like Supreme King Gate monster or whatever, from your face-up extra deck to your hand. So now you have basically gone +2, and you quick synchroed into the Clear Wing, which destroyed the Purple Poison, which in this case would have been annoying because Purple Poison could have popped your, like, the Link 3 or whatever. But let's just pretend that it was like a Lokai, for example, right? And so yeah, this is a very basic like 2-card combo into double Raigeki. In this case you didn't have any negates, but if you had just one more card in your hand, you could have searched for, or like maybe if you opened Lightworm or Revolution Dragon or Joker, then you maybe could have had access to harmonizing via Beyond the Pendulum, and then you can make an Omni Negate, stuff like that. So there's definitely a lot of variance here, and you can expand your plays all you like. This is just a very basic line that you can take. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this, guys. If you did, then definitely leave a like. And if you have any questions or suggestions about the deck, because I'm definitely new to this, I can't say I figured this out completely at all. So if you have any suggestions, then definitely leave them in the comments. If you want to see more content like this, then definitely subscribe to the channel, because right now I'm actually trying to keep my schedule steady and come up with better video ideas and even improve on the editing and stuff like that. So I would be really happy about that. And other than that, guys, see you next time.